Okay, why don't we start to get seated and we'll begin the presentation. My name's Matt Schenke. I'm Village Administrator. I recognize a lot of faces here. Thank you for coming, some new ones as well. I appreciate the turnout and to learn more about possible redevelopment of 4719 Farwell Street. The village acquired this property last year in hopes of redeveloping it to add value to the community and the district that was recently created. To that end, we sent out an RFP. We received 2 proposals to redevelop the site, and tonight you'll see one of those moving out here at 6:15. Essentially, the CDA wanted to be able to have them show you their vision, receive input on what they have presented in order to help them make a decision. The CDA is a community development authority, which is made up of residents of the community that report back to the village board, and ultimately will make a recommendation on which proposal to move forward on. I do have some unfortunate news, though. This will be the only presentation we have tonight. The other group canceled about an hour ago. It's a late notice. I don't have a rescheduling, but I will certainly try to do that. But tonight we'll hear from Lakestone and Movin Out. They're obviously here, prepared. I want to hear from them, and then there'll be more information about the other group. But hopefully we can try to get something rescheduled for next week so they can have the same opportunity. But to that end, we've asked them to give a short presentation, about 15 minutes of what they're proposing to do, and then a question and answer session, and then just kind of an informal follow-up after that where we can continue to talk about the project in small groups. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Hello, thanks for coming out in the freezing cold. It sounds like we got more of it coming, but we're excited. We're very excited about this project. I'd like to give a little introduction and introduce everyone here. Again, my name is Brian Spanos with Lakestone Properties. This is Brett Raymond with Lakestone Properties. This is Dave Porterfield with Movin Out, and Megan Schutz with Movin Out as well. Just to give you an overview, we'll start talking a little background on Lakestone and Movin Out. We'll go into an overview on the project itself, and we'll spend some time with what is affordable housing. So since I'm up here, we'll give a little background on who Lakestone Properties is. Lakestone is a locally grown business in McFarland here. Our office is right on Main Street. We've been established since 2012. We've actually been around longer under a different name, but Lakestone has been here since 2012. It was started by both myself and Brett Riemann. Our main focus really is on multifamily projects. We spend a lot of our time and resources concentrating on certain markets, smaller communities. We self-manage all of our own properties, again, with our own management company here in town, so we're very involved. We like to, again, work on these communities such as Oregon, McFarland, Mount Horeb. Both Brett and I are residents of McFarland. Brett's lived here his whole life. I've been here for over 20 years, so we're really excited to do something close to home. Some of the other projects we've completed, you might have seen around the village. In 2016, we completed Farwell Place, is a 38-unit market rate luxury apartments. It's been doing very successful. It's 100% occupied. We're very proud of that project, and we feel like it's a nice asset to the village. In addition, we've just finished a project in Oregon, Wisconsin last summer. That is a 61-unit market rate complex right in the downtown and infill property that took some blighted houses and a car repair shop and turned it into something beautiful. I think Oregon's very happy with that as well. And it's also full and doing very well. So these are some of the projects. We also have done projects in Mount Horeb, and we have projects going on, throughout Madison as well on different types of real estate. But we're very excited about being here in McFarland and putting our focus and energy here in McFarland. So I'll give Megan the remote here. She can take over for a little background on Movin Out.
There you go. So hi, my name is Megan Schutz. I'm with Movin Out. I joined Movin Out over the summer after spending over a decade at a larger development firm in Oregon, Gorman and Company. where I worked on over 40 real estate projects in my time there. Movin Out. Movin Out is a nonprofit. We're based in Madison, just up on Cottage Grove Road. Our mission is providing affordable housing options to households where at least one family member has a permanent disability or is a military veteran. Movin Out kind of grew out of the concept of parents out there who had children with disabilities and trying to provide long-term solutions, trying to plan for time when they weren't around to help care for them and what housing opportunities were available for them. Really focuses on integrated housing, so situations where folks are integrated with differently abled folks. And we also have, in addition to our development side, that's developed over 1,000 units in our time and operates 250 units. We try to keep about 20% of the units targeting our folks. We also have a housing counseling side that focuses on down payment assistance, rehab assistance, again, targeting families where at least one family member has a permanent disability. So to get folks into different living situations or to improve their current living situations. Sorry, I'm using that. Again, our mission, partnership with people with disabilities and their allies, creates and sustains community integrated, safe, affordable housing solutions, whatever that housing solution might be. For some people, it's a house. For some people, it's roommate situations. For some people, it's an apartment where they can live more independently on their own. A few examples of some of the properties we've developed. Just down the road in Stoughton, right on the river there, is Elvinstead. That opened a couple of years ago and continues to be very successful. Penny Lane Apartments, which is actually that's where our office is, in the little corner there. About 60 units there that opened up about 3 years ago as well. And that kind of gives you, it's actually very similar design to what we're sharing here. It's two L's, but two L's kind of make a U. So, and then most recently, and what you may have seen across the road from Shopko at Southtown Mall, is the Royal Apartments. And those opened up in the fourth quarter and are almost full. It has some commercial space integration there, and then mixed income housing. And then something that's a little different is Madison and Maine. Again, you'll see retail usage on the first floor there, and this is all a mix of market rate and some targeted affordability, but is financed completely with equity. So it's a little different financing approach. All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Brett to talk about the project.
Thank you. Again, my name is Brett Riemann with Lakestone Properties, and when I'm done speaking and we're done with the presentation, I'm going to run out of here, not because I don't want to be here and answer questions, but it's because my daughter's in a play in Stoughton that starts at 7, so I got to get there. But these guys will be here to answer your questions. I just don't want to offend anybody if you see me running out the door. So a little bit of a project overview. You've seen the boards, but it's a 3-story building with commercial on the front, underground parking. There's 8,000 square feet of commercial space. We're going to target existing companies. We haven't reached out to companies yet. I know there's a need for some commercial space in McFarland. We're just trying to gauge how much. So we would target existing companies, new companies coming in to enter the McFarland market. There's been some nice growth in McFarland, so we believe more retail can be supported. Again, it's just trying to figure out how much. I've had conversations. I'm in commercial real estate, been in it for 20 years, so I know a lot of retail brokers, and I asked them about McFarland, and because they represent different regional, national, local retailers, and say, all right, you have any people looking at McFarland? And once in a while they do, and I've talked to them in the last few weeks, and just trying to gauge their interest, and they do have some. It's not a lot, so it's just trying to find that balance of how much commercial space can be filled in McFarland, and then finding that right tenant mix. So about 8,000 square feet would house anywhere from 4 to 6 businesses, probably even 2 to 6. I mean, in our project, we'll show you, there's 2 4,000 square foot commercial spaces, so a 4,000 square foot user is pretty big, but we could find one. So I should probably say 2 to 6 businesses. Could be anywhere from a restaurant, brew pub, wellness facility, specialty retail, even shared office space. So there's a new thing going on in office space called co-working. So it's where people maybe be working out of their homes, working just typically traveling, and they don't have a set office space. And what happens is they find these co-working locations where, let's say, it's 2,000 to 20,000 square feet, and they can be a monthly membership. They can go there. They can have their own desk. They can have a desk that they can just go to that's not personalized. But that could be something McFarland could use. I think it'd be pretty neat. Usually these centers are pretty exciting, and they have a lot of entrepreneurs in them. So it could be 1,000 to 2,000 square feet we'd put in there as a co-working space. And then into the residential piece, it's an 80 unit. It is designed for 55 and older. 80% of them were marketed and designed for 55 and older residents. We're going to focus on the workforce and affordable housing, which Megan will kind of give you some education on a little bit next. They're studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom apartments, and then they'd include a fitness center, community room, underground parking, and then an on-site office as well. In terms of overall, what some other stuff about the project, it will be all done in a single phase. So we'll build the entire building in a single phase. Quality materials, a significant portion of the building, what you can see on these, and I'll bring up some more slides, is that we tried to push the building back off of Farwell, so it wasn't so large of an appearance as you're driving down the street. So we have the 2 end caps of commercial up, but we try to push everything in the back, which we'll talk about a little bit more. We try to minimize the parking from Farwell. We created a central courtyard for outdoor gathering, garden plots for residents, some grilling areas. Try to get those commercial spaces really pulled up to the street, so we create kind of a nice retail vibe there. And then we also, because it's very important, you wanted a lot of parking for the retail users. If you're going to get retail users, they need parking, and we want to make sure we have that for them. So here's the site plan. Farwell Street is here. The existing office building is right here. That would come down. Parking on both sides. Again, this commercial space up front with some nice patio space on each side. The residential is all flanking in the back with really their private plaza deck, which you can't tell from here is that's elevated a little bit, so it gives more privacy to the residents if there's something going down here in the commercial space, and whether it's a restaurant or some other use for that commercial space. We wanted to create a sense of privacy on both sides, both the commercial and the residential. I think that's probably good for now. Here's access to underground parking. Next are just a few views from Farwell. Again, we tried to push a lot of that back, but bring the retail up front, the courtyard in the middle. It's a nice picture there. Get an idea of some of that patio space, and really a lot of this stuff, and you'll see on that site plan, is there is the parking on both sides, but again, most of the areas you're seeing is either green space or the building itself. And it just shows the second floor, which is apartments, and then the basement plan. So really the underground parking is under this portion of the building, which includes that patio space. And I think that ends pretty much a project overview. I'll bring Megan back up, and she can talk a little bit about affordable housing.
So what is affordable housing? What is workforce housing? You hear those terms kind of used interchangeably. I think it's important. I'm not going to get into like the nitty gritty stuff and put everyone to sleep, but the general concept of affordable housing is that rents are kept affordable based on your income level. And because of that, an owner can apply for tax credits and then get equity from those tax credits. So because you can't support as much of a mortgage, because you're not getting as much income, because you're artificially restricting your rents, you get a little equity to make sure to kind of balance your sources and uses. tons of benefits to this, right? In that most people, in general, already are in the income ranges for affordable or workforce housing. And that affordability lets people live in the communities that they work, right? So they don't have to drive, 10 miles to find some place that they can afford if they, are working at the high school. And it's all sorts of folks. It's teachers, waitresses, police officers, and we'll detail, I'll show some examples here in a bit. And really what we find is that affordable housing is kind of a great catalyst. Affordable housing tends to be the first one in certain areas just because it's, I don't know, maybe us developers are more comfortable with the risk of an unknown. But it just infuses local people in the community. This is a lot of numbers. It's meant to be a quick reference. These are the income limits based on CMI as county median income. So there's splits of 30% of CMI, 50, 60. Our proposal also includes spouses and one child. Maybe only one of the adults works. That person could make $41,000 a year and be considered 50%, kind of making half of what the county median income is. $20 an hour, as an example, to kind of show through the chart. 60%, you could have a family with 3 children, and they could have an income of $60,000. And I think a lot of people don't think $60,000, that doesn't sound like affordable. But when you actually apply what the amount you should be paying towards your housing, it's about 30%. So 30% of what you make should be the most that you're paying for your housing. Some people are probably doing calculations in their head right now and wondering if they qualify. I know when I was younger, I was paying way more than that. And this affordability allows people to make sure that they have the other necessities in life, maybe at some point get some savings and function and move on. And the important thing to know with affordable housing, and one question I always get asked is, what happens if you do better? You don't lose your apartment. Once you're in, and there's a promotion of bettering yourself, of making a little bit more money. You're not going to get kicked out because you got a better job. But you also have to have an income, right? You have to be able to pay your rent. So while you have to be under a certain rent, you have to be able to pay the rent. And again, use about that 1/3, right? So you have to make at least 3 times your rent monthly, if you want to put generalities there. So if you look at the bottom, that's going to note your income, your rents, and what the rent cutoffs would be. So I don't know about you, but I saw $1,400 and for a 3-bedroom, I thought, that doesn't seem all that affordable. But when you look at all the numbers, $1,400 is considered affordable for a 3-bedroom apartment. So I think it's important, it kind of puts the pieces together a little bit. And I did a quick search just on Indeed.com of current job listings. These are all positions within 5 miles here that would qualify for affordable workforce housing. So a postal carrier, a special education assistant at the school district, a CAD operator. I mean, it just kind of gives you, hopefully puts a face to people if you've not considered it before. So that's a general overview of affordable housing. I know I kind of smushed it all into a very short period of time, and it can be confusing. I'm here, we're all here after to answer questions, but just trying to give some perspective of, sometimes people hear affordable housing and they get nervous. But if you think of it as workforce housing, if you think of it as your neighbor who maybe works at the grocery store, those are folks that qualify. And I often challenge people to kind of think of some jobs you had. And I know I had plenty early in my career that would have qualified, and I wished I had opportunity for nice, affordable housing at that time.
So yeah, just looking ahead, it's our response was put together on looking through the RFP, trying to put a project together where we didn't ask for additional funds from the village. So that's kind of what we needed to do to offer that type of plan. We adhered to the design standards in there, which increased some costs, but we wanted to make a nice project. Long story short, we're flexible, right? This is kind of our first presentation, second presentation, gaining feedback, understanding what the village wants to see there, what the board, the CDA, Planning Commission wants to see there too, and work together as a team, really, and we're all a team here, to find something that works for everybody and that we all can be proud of. So from that, I'm going to leave. And these guys can answer all your questions. But thank you for coming. So.
Do we want folks to come up to ask questions?
I just would say, if you have some questions, certainly feel free, if you could ask them from this podium so they could be recorded. We are broadcasting a meeting through our cable channel, so people who were not able to make it could watch the presentation later and offer feedback as well. But if you have questions, please feel free to come up and ask them through this microphone.
I just want to my name's Elizabeth Eisengay. I actually live at 4905 Farwell Street. I've lived there about 10 years. So this project is very close to my house, and generally I have some concerns, but I will send them to the village in general because it has to do with both projects, not necessarily your specific project. But earlier we were talking that you said 80% was 55 and older, and then you went into workforce housing. So my question is it 20% that you're talking about that's this workforce housing, or?
No.
No.
So we've thrown around a lot of percentages, 20% of integrated housing and all these things. Those are not necessarily mutually exclusive things. Workforce housing, there are a lot of folks 55 and older who are working for a while. I think they would attest to that. Affordable workforce housing we're still looking at targeting that 80% at 55 and older. Again, I think as I mentioned earlier, the goal would be to do some further market analysis and make sure that there's a demand. My knowledge of Dane County in general and McFarland is that there's demand for affordable housing for all ages, but a specific demand for older adults as well, which is why we're focusing the marketing and the design on that demographic.
Okay. So the 80% of 55 and older is income restricted are those 80% of 55 and older also income restricted, or?
It depends. So all of the units
Right.
will have a mix of income restrictions. So it'll be some 30s, some 50s, some 60s, some markets. We don't go through and assign that 55 plus have to be in either one. We just kind of, as people come in, they fit in certain boxes, and we make sure that we're meeting the requirements of our funding. So there's one doesn't preclude you from the other.
Okay, so you don't have to be 55 or older then to live, or have one person in your household 50 or older then?
So this approach assumes that 80% of all the units have one person that's 55 or older. So at least 20%, and that's a HUD definition. HUD has, in order to be able to restrict because of a certain reason, like age, because it's a protected class, they have definitions that they allow. So it's either 80% of the units for 55 plus, or it's 100% of the units where everybody is 62 plus. In our experience, the 62 plus is really restricting and doesn't allow, say, if you have a husband and wife who are different ages, one of them could not be allowed to live there because they didn't hit 62 yet. So the 55 plus gives you a lot of flexibility, in other words. You also might still have people who are 55 who have kids. They've got teenagers or young kids. I know some who have pretty young kids even at 50. So it really allows more flexibility, in our opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If you'd rather ask them not in front of everyone, I understand too. We'll be up here to answer any questions after as well.
If there are no more questions, certainly they're here to answer things on a more personal level, if that's more comfortable, as she said. But on the way in, on the right-hand side, there's a comment form. It's very simple. It allows you, if you'd like, to provide comments to the village regarding this project and the other one. Tomorrow, we'll put an online version up, so it can be typed if that's preferable for those who are at home or couldn't make it tonight but wanted to provide some feedback. The plan then is for those to be compiled and provided to the CDA as part of their deliberations on the project and considerations for each of the proposals. So their intention is to use that input to help make decisions as we go forward on the potential redevelopment of this property. So certainly would encourage you to grab a form and fill it out. If you're not able to, or you want to take some more time with it, you just let me know before you leave. I'll give you my card and drop it off or email it to me. And I certainly receive it later. Yes.
Just a real quick question. What is the village's decision-making criteria between the two proposals?
So right now, the question was our decision-making criteria between the two proposals. And right now, the village board received or sent out the RFP. They received the two proposals and handed them to the CDA essentially to review them and make a recommendation. The CDA is reviewing the proposals, looking at aspects of density, aesthetics, the commercial, the balance between commercial and residential use, the balance between the sort of the residential components that she was just describing, as the affordability. A lot of these different factors that come into play with respect to sort of how the site is proposed to be used in their vision. And the idea is that when we get back together, we're going to talk about sort of the input received, the feedback that the CDA itself has been talking about to kind of formulate a response to the developers and ask them to address that as how they might see or change their vision to better align with what the CDA has discussed. And in doing so, the CDA ultimately will make a decision to recommend back to the village board which proposal to select. And in essence, we're in a process where we're trying to pick a potential prospective developer. Once that happens, then we can focus and we can spend more time. This will take a long time to evolve. Even after a selection is made, we have to go through plan commission review for site plan, potential rezoning if that's applicable, the other sorts of things that the CDA might be interested in. So it'll be a deliberate process that'll take some time. But right now, the focus obviously is making a selection, and those are some of the components that the CDA is weighing as part of that process. You're welcome. But certainly grab a comment form. I can get some business cards if you wanted to just send me an email, trying to make it as easy as possible to provide input. And then, from there, these people will be here to help answer questions if you have them. Otherwise, again, I'm sorry that I wish we could have had a second presentation tonight, but we'll see if we can make arrangements for that at a future date. So, thank you.
Thank you.